and have a seat. And folks at home, you can't see me, but you can hear me. So you can set your yoga mat on your chair on your yoga mat and have a seat. And we will begin. Welcome everyone to Sterling Silver Yoga. This is the intermediate yoga practice. My name is Katie Luvat. I think most of you have joined me before, but if you haven't, welcome. And just a reminder as we're moving through our practice today that we always want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And so if there's anything I invite you to do that doesn't feel good in your body, you don't have to do it. You can say no, thank you. You can back off and just take care of yourself. And if, and that's one of the first principles of yoga. There's a word, one of the ethical principles of yoga is ahimsa. And it just means practicing not harming and non-violence. So we can think about that as we're moving around in the world and taking care of ourselves. If we're doing anything and you need a break before I ask you to take a break, take a break. So this is all about tuning into ourselves, listening to our bodies, being embodied. We spend a lot of the day kind of living up above our shoulders, up here in our heads. And so you get to drop down and see what it feels like to be in your body today and come into your breath and take care. So like I said, we're going to start in our chairs. I'm going to go ahead and sit in mine, and I want to show you a couple of things when you are sitting, even if you're not doing yoga and you're sitting in a chair at home, at your desk, or at a table. You want to kind of notice your chair. A lot of our chairs that we sit in are built so that the front of the chair is a lot higher than the back of the chair. I mean, you can even think about your couch, kind of like you sit into your couch and you kind of squish back into it. In the studio, you'll notice that the front of our seats are higher than the back of the seats. So just kind of notice that, especially if you grabbed a chair that doesn't have a chair back. And I want everybody to come to the front edge of the seat. And then plant your feet so your heels are under your knees, and then notice how that works in your body. What we want is our knees to be either in line with our hips, or we want the knees to be lower than our hips. And so if your hips are lower than your knees, I ask that you grab a blanket and put a blanket underneath you. And if you're very long-legged, a really nice thing to do, and sometimes I do it and I don't even consider myself very long-legged, would be to you can take a couple of your blocks and you can put it on your chair seat. And then you've really, I mean, this just feels nice, especially if you've been working in your garden and you've been kind of hinged at the hips a lot of the day. Getting your hips up higher than your knees is a really generous, sweet thing to do for yourself. This is how I'm going to practice right now with some blocks under me. So once you've set yourself up and you're happy, I'm going to have you think about your two sit bones that you're perched on. They're underneath you, and feel how you can tip your pelvis so that you kind of roll toward the back of your sit bones. And when you do that, your lower back rounds, it moves into a kind of a C curve. And if you tip your pelvis up and through center and forward so that your front hips are coming toward your thighs and your tailbone tucks out from under you and you're hinged forward, you're now kind of hanging out on the front edge of your sit bones. And what I want is to have us feel like we're coming back to perch on the very tips of our sit bones. And when we're there, and when our pelvis is level, and our ribs are over our pelvis, and our shoulders are over our hips, and our ears are over our shoulders, then we should have a pretty neutral spine with all of its natural curves intact. A little curve in the lumbar going concave, your thoracic spine where the ribs attach is convex, it curves back toward the wall behind you. Your cervical curve curves in like your lumbar curve. We want all of those curves. Our spine is a spring. And so its job is to transmit the force of gravity through our body efficiently, and so that we can move efficiently and not find strain or begin to deteriorate through the skeleton or our discs. Thanks for listening. So all that being said, we're here and we're feeling like we're sitting in our center, and I'm going to have you rest your hands on your thighs. And you can close your eyes if you feel like it, or you can keep your gaze open. And let's take 3 slow, deep breaths and just arrive in our bodies. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel that connection to the earth. Feel the touch of your sit bones on the seat of your chair. Maybe one of those exhales can invite your shoulders to relax down out of your ears. And we can feel also with our exhale a descending energy, a sense of grounding down into feet or into sit bones. And maybe with your inhale, the opposite of that, a sense of rising, the spine getting a little taller. And a few more slow, deep breaths. I'm going to have you on your next inhale, roll your palms toward the ceiling so that the back of your hands rest on your thighs for the duration of your inhale. And as the exhale moves out, roll your palms back down so the palms rest on your thighs. And continue doing that. So for a long, slow inhale, we'll roll our palms up. And as the exhale begins, for the long, slow exhale, we roll our palms down. So this is a nice, gentle technique to tie the threads of the mind and the body and the breath together. Inhaling, palms up. And exhaling, palms down. And all the while smoothing out and filling out our breath. Face is soft, jaw is soft. Feeling the belly expanding with the inhale and gently moving back toward the spine with the exhale. The next time your hands rest palms down on your thighs, you might inhale and open your eyes and begin to move your pelvis. So on your next inhale, we're going to untuck the tailbone. It sweeps out from underneath us and the pelvis tips forward and we're going to lift our spine up into a back bend. So the front of the shoulders draw back, the gaze lifts. And as you exhale, start at your tailbone, tuck it underneath you, roll to the back of your sit bones and feel your spine move into flexion one vertebra at a time. The chin comes to chest and the shoulder blades spread. So you're inhaling and rolling toward the front of your sit bones. The pelvis tips forward, the spine lifts up into a back bend. And as you exhale, the tail tucks under. You move to the back of the sit bones and the spine moves into flexion. And we'll go back and forth a couple more times. If you feel like it, adding some arm movement. As you exhale, the arms come in front of you like you're clapping your hands out in front of your heart, straight arms. And as you inhale, tipping the pelvis forward and lifting the spine into a back bend, the arms open. You might feel a nice stretch through the front of the chest. We go back and forth that way a few more times, trying to, again, harmonize your body, your mind, and your breath. It's a nice moving meditation, a way of collecting our attention that may be scattered during the day. And then here we are in this practice this evening, recollecting our attention, coming into our bodies, moving and breathing. One more time, back and forth. And then find neutral pelvis. So you're going to come back to feel like you're perched on the very tips of your sit bones. Bring your hands onto your thighs. Feel your shoulders over your hips and your ears over your shoulders. And I want you to imagine your feet are clipped into Nordic skis. Okay. And when you're Nordic skiing, your legs go back and forth like this. What they don't do a lot of is they don't do a lot of side to side lateral movement. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of twisting, pretty simple twisting, with our legs sliding and gliding, which is going to invite our hips to slide and glide, which is going to invite our spines to twist. We're going to start nice and slow, and then you can move at your own pace. But remember, the legs are going forward. They're not going like side to side. So place your hands about halfway between your knees and your hips on your thighs. And I'm going to invite you to glide, and I'm mirroring for the folks at home. So if you're on my side, I'm going to say left and you'll see me do right, but don't get confused here. So I'm going to slide my right leg and my right hand and my right hip forward as I pull my left thigh and my left hip and my right hand backward. And that movement's going to start to turn my pelvis and my belly and my ribs and my heart and my lungs to the left. And then I'm going to slide my left thigh and my left hip and my left hand forward as I pull my right thigh, my right hand, my right hip backward. It turns the pelvis to the right. The navel, the heart, the lungs, the spine turn right. And now you get to go on your own. So imagine your legs are, in those Nordic skis. Slide one forward as you pull the other back. Let it come all the way into your hips and let that come all the way into your spine, because your spine is anchored in your pelvis by your sacrum. So what your pelvis is doing is going to affect what your spine is doing. Now, as we're doing this, just enjoy the nice twisting movement, but also imagine, if you think about when you're driving your car, you have to look over your shoulder to see that you're not going to run over any children or small animals when you're backing up. This is a really good way to do it. So think about starting from the bottom and spiraling from legs to hips, to pelvis, to spine, to shoulders, to gaze, rather than just turning and cranking your head and looking over your shoulders. We want a nice, sweet spiral. So we're going to go one more time in each direction. And then we'll come back to the center. And when you get back to the center, we're going to take our legs wide. And the feet will be planted heels under knees, and the feet are wider than hip width apart. And again, we're still perched in this kind of nice upright pelvic position. We'll inhale the arms into the sky, and I might close the door while you guys are reaching up, because I think there's somebody smoking out in the alley and it's carrying in. I'm so sorry. Never mind. My apologies for the interruptions. Nobody is there. It's like my ghost knows. Okay, so we're inhaling up. We're going to exhale and release the left arm down. And you're going to side bend. And then inhaling through the center and side bending to the other side. Now, I'm going to the ocean this weekend, which I'm very excited about. But it's making me think about things in the ocean. And I'm having you maybe imagine that you're sea kelp and you're just kind of letting the ocean tides move you about. So we've done some nice flexion and extension through our spine, forward and back. We've done some nice rotation and twisting. And now we're doing lateral flexion. So these are all of the ways your spine moves, and it wants to move this way. This is how we nourish our intervertebral discs. They're like little sponges. They absorb the nutrients around them when they're pressed and released. Let's go one more time from side to side. Sorry, I forgot to find my wide leg stance. Good. And then we're going to come back to the center. And we're going to release the arms down. Heel toe your feet back in line with your sit bones. So this is another shape. We're going to take a figure 4 stretch, which sometimes when you're sitting in a chair is a little bit more effective than when we all often do it on our backs on the floor. But it also might require, for those of you with tighter hips, that you elevate your seat. So let's see what happens. You might have to tuck blocks under you if you haven't already. So reach your left arm forward, internally rotate it so your thumb points down, and slide that hand down between your two legs, and then catch underneath your left leg. You're going to go right underneath that knee, and you're going to lift your leg up. With your right hand, you're going to find your ankle, and so your left hand and your right hand are helping you externally rotate that leg and stack your left ankle over your right thigh. Here we are. See if you can flex your left foot. Okay, that's going to stabilize the knee joint a little bit. And then let's think about where we're sitting on our sit bones. So many of you, if you have a tight hips, probably got pushed to the back of your sit bones and your low back curve is rounding now. That's okay. It's helpful to get more height under your seat. That'll help you sit up taller, but I want you to maybe take your hands to the back legs of your chair. And I want you to think about, even if it's just an idea, untucking your tailbone and bringing your pelvis back upright and lengthening up through the spine, and maybe opening up through the front of the chest. The left thigh bone is externally rotating toward the floor. See if you can feel both of your sit bones evenly weighted, and feel your left thigh bone lengthening toward your knee out of the hip socket. Take a few breaths. Now, some of you might feel like, yeah, and I could deepen here. And so if you want to deepen, you're going from the pelvis. So what we don't want is to deepen by collapsing. You want to think about that tailbone, sweeping it out from underneath you, maybe pressing the chair back a little bit. Maybe your hands come to your knee and your foot. But again, it's that tipping toward the front of your sit bones. And we're still warming up here. So it might be that we don't go too far, because too far might be too far. But take some breath into your hips for a moment. And then when you're ready, come back upright. And we're going to take that left thigh and cross it deeply over the right thigh. Heel toe your right foot in line with your nose and your sternum and your pubic bone. And again, feel your two sit bones evenly weighted. And inhale, getting nice and tall. And exhale, we're going to turn to our left. So you're going to think about the abdomen and the deep spinal muscles helping to rotate the spine. The back of the right arm and hand come to the outer left thigh. The left hand, if there's room, might find your seat, and that left collarbone opening out toward the shoulder. And feeling, again, the exhale may be connecting you to the ground and to your seat. The inhale connecting you to the rising energy. The exhale, feel the belly hugging back toward the spine, wrapping your way into the twist. The inhale, the belly expands away from the spine. So feeling the potential to give your belly organs, your digestive organs, everything inside of your abdomen a massage here. As you turn your spine and as you breathe your diaphragmatic breaths, belly expanding and hugging back toward the spine. Some of you might be getting a little stretch through the outer left leg. This is a good piriformis stretch for those who might have tightness in that area. When you're ready, come back through the center. Good. Left foot comes back to the ground. 2 feet back in line with knees, back in line with hips. We're perched on our 2 sit bones. The right arm reaches out in front of us, internally rotates. Arm goes down. Simon says, pick up your right leg and then take your left hand, and you're not pulling hard on that shin. The rotation comes from the upper leg turning out. So it's not from you pulling on this ankle, it's from the upper leg rotating in the hip socket. Ankle sets down on the left thigh. Jerry, maybe stick those blocks underneath you, like I have mine, and see if that brings some ease. The 2 blocks that are just on the floor behind you there. Okay. When you're ready, find your 2 sit bones evenly grounded and think about lifting up through the spine. Bring your hands to the legs of the chair or the back of the chair and begin to press. See if you can bring your front hip bones toward your thigh bones. The tailbone swings back. So Jerry, figure 4, you're going to cross your ankle, Jerry, over your thigh. Good. And then don't twist yet. You're just heart's facing forward and you're just letting that hip open up a little bit. And for those of you who want to move deeper, you're going to fold your pelvis forward, the heart lengthening forward out in front of the shin. Couple more breaths. Folding from the hips rather than the spine. And then ease your way up. Now the right leg crosses over the left leg, nice and deep. We reconnect to our 2 sit bones. Try to untuck the tailbone, lift up nice and tall, and on an exhale, rotating to the right. The back of the left arm to the outer right thigh. The right fingertips might find the seat of the chair behind you. So we're trying to find a place for that right shoulder and arm to work so you don't feel like you're torquing that shoulder or scrunching it up into your ears. And then just that nice belly breath, belly expanding with the inhale, hugging back toward the spine with the exhale. The arm is a gentle helper Most of your twists should come from the deep muscles closest to the spine and your abdominal muscles. The arm can help refine the twist, but we never want to push or force anything. We'll take one more breath. And then when you're ready, unwind. Placing our feet back on the floor. Your heels are going to be, so you're on the very edge of your chair seat. Your heels are either under your knees or a little bit behind them. And I want you to feel all three corners of both of your feet on the floor. And by corners, I mean the big toe ball, the pinky toe ball, and the heel. So you're firming into the tripod of your feet. And we're going to karate chop ourselves right at the hip crease. So think about where that is. And we're going to hinge there. So your front hip bones, can you find those pointy front hip bones? They're going to come toward your thigh bones. So that's a hip hinge. And I'm going to have you reach your arms forward now. And I want you to feel your feet firming down. And I want you to reach forward, forward, forward with yourself and your arms until your weight is in your feet and you float your buns off of your chair and you're going to stand all the way up. The arms are going to press down. The quads straighten the legs. The gluteal muscles straighten the legs. And we're going to press the arms into shoulder extension and find a little bit of a heart opening. Now this next part, I want you to make sure the chair is behind you. So we're going to be careful, but we're going to sit slowly back down. We're not going to collapse back down. Same way we came up. So you're going to bend your knees and reach your sit bones way back. And then have a seat and then sit up tall. There you go. You got to make sure that chair's there. And then hinge forward until your weight is in your feet, and then lift your sit bones up and straighten, press the arms back. And if it feels okay to you, do that one more time, sitting down and standing up. And if that's not feeling great for your knees, you can stay standing and just be in mountain pose for a moment while we catch up with you. Good, one more time. So now other things that you can do with your chairs, instead of just sitting in them, you can, every time you go to sit in them, you can try it like 3 or 4 times and do it really slowly and try not to use your momentum. Use that slow transition of your weight and gravity to help you in and up. So we're standing, unless you want to do it again, sit down, stand up nice, slow. And when you get back to standing on your feet, we're going to take things off of our chair. Like if you have blocks, they can come off of your chair for now. And we're going to move our chair. I'm going to move mine like so, just because I want to give the folks at home a little view. You're just moving it to the front of your mat. And when you face your chair, you want the back of the chair to be facing you. Okay. So Kelly, you're going to spin your chair 90 degrees so the back of the chair is facing you. You're facing me. Yep. Perfect. Now, what we're going to do is just a chair down dog. And so I'll show you what that looks like. But I also want to say that everybody has different height chairs. Some of them, the backs of the chairs are higher, especially if you're at home, and some are lower. And we are all different heights, humans, right? Some of us are really tall, some of us are shorter, some have longer legs, some have shorter legs. All of that to say that you might find that your chair is too short for you. And if you do, you're going to use the wall instead. So I'm going to first do this on the wall, or if you just decide you want to use the wall and you want to ignore your chair, you can. The wall press, you plant your hands on the wall shoulder height, and then you're going to step back away from the wall. Hips are underneath or over your ankles. Arms are straight, ears are in line with your arms. So this is an option for very tall folks with chairs that feel a little too short, or if your hamstrings are very tight. Otherwise, hands are going to be on the back of the chair. They're shoulder width apart. You're going to step back far enough that you can shift your hips back over your ankles. Your arms can straighten. Your ears are not below your arms. They're above your arms or in line with your arms. Your gaze is on the floor, except for just a moment, look at your feet. Make sure they're facing forward. They're not turning outward. Feet are parallel. Spread your toes. Bend your knees a little bit. So earlier we were sitting in our chair and we were trying to find a neutral pelvis. And we can find a neutral pelvis here too. Feel how if you bend your knees, you can lift your tailbone and sit bones up, and you can tuck them down, and you can feel how your lower back moves between a back bend and a flexed position. And what we want is finding neutral where your pelvic floor, if it had a spotlight in it, would be shining a spotlight straight back toward the wall behind you. It wouldn't be going up toward the ceiling or down toward your floor. And then you're just thinking about letting the spine elongate, the hips reaching away from the head, the arms pushing down, sending the chair forward, taking a couple more breaths. Feel the exhale, pulling the navel back toward the spine. And then when you're ready, step forward, stand all the way up, mountain pose. Roll your arms out, external rotation, reach your arms up, extended mountain pose. Good, and then release the arms down, bring your hands back to your chair, or if you're working with a wall, to your wall, go ahead and step back, find that shape again. Let the knees be unlocked, so they're not locked straight. There's a little springy bounce to them. That's gonna release your hamstrings a little so your pelvis can get organized. Take a couple more breaths here. Feel how the exhale brings the abdomen back toward the spine, supporting it. I feel the inhale might expand the spine or the belly a little bit. Gaze is soft. Breath is steady. And when you're ready to come out of the pose, go ahead and step forward. Good. Mountain pose, level pelvis, arms roll out, arms reach up. A breath in and out. Good, and then release the arms down. Okay, so now we're going to take another shape. It's called pyramid pose. And the trunk and the shape of the arms are going to be just like what we just did. The difference is we're going to have one leg forward and one leg backward. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then we'll all move into it together. So you have to figure out where to be in relationship to your chair. But once you get into the pose, you can always slide your chair around and adjust it. So I'm going to take my right leg forward and my left leg back. And my right leg is pointing straight forward and my left leg is pointing toward the upper corner of my mat so that my right hip can come back and my left hip can come forward and I'm square. I'm going to find those hip creases. I'm going to hinge from the hip creases so my sit bones are lifting up. I find my chair. Notice that it's a little too close to me. So Jerry, take a look. And I'm going to slide forward. And now I've got a nice long spine. I've got those nice open arms and I'm squaring my hips a little bit. When we're ready to come up, we're going to bend that front knee a little bit, hands to hips, hinge up using the back of our legs rather than rolling up. All right, let's do this. So feet are about hip width apart. So you're on a train track rather than tightrope. Spreading out your feet. So think about lifting, spreading the toes, feeling into the corners of the feet. Bring your left hip forward, feel the right hip pulling back. Soften the front knee a little bit so that your pelvis can tip. Your hamstrings are going to release that pelvis to tip forward. Bring your hands to the top of the chair and either send the chair forward or step backward a little bit as much as you need to so that your arms can fully extend. Remember, if you're encountering really tight hamstrings in the front leg, you're allowed to bend that front knee. You're not breaking any rules. Make sure you're not overstretching. And the head is in line with the arms, ears in line with the arms. And again, belly expanding with the inhale, strengthening back toward the spine with the exhale. Nice. Okay, last couple of breaths. When you're ready, soften the front leg a little bit. Feel that right heel firming down. So your leg has you, your abdomen has you, hands to hips, elbows hug back, and we're going to hinge the pelvis back upright. Good work. So step your left leg forward, step your right leg backward. So the left leg, the toes, the leg are pointing straight ahead. The back leg, the toes are pointing to the upper corner of the mat. The back leg spirals in, that hip comes forward, the front hip pulls back. Soften the front knee a little bit, hinge from the hips, reach for your chair, and pull it closer or send it further away. As you come closer to the ground, think about pulling that left hip and thigh back, wrapping that right hip forward, spreading the toes, feeling into the feet, and connecting with your steady breath. Relaxing the jaw, softening the eyes. finding a soft, quiet place for your gaze to rest. And when you're ready, bend the left knee a little bit. Exhale, abdomen to spine, hands to hips. Hinge your pelvis back upright. And let's step forward. All right, so for the next shape, we're going to take another twist. And that there's a little bit of element of that Nordic track energy to it. Some of you might decide you want to set up close to a wall, and some of you might feel really comfortable in the middle of the room. I'm going to show you the setup close to the wall first, and then you just know that you can go to a wall if you need to. So here's the setup. This is what we're up to. I've moved closer to my wall. My left leg is the inside leg, and it's going to come onto the chair, and we're going to be standing tall and turning into that leg. Okay, and so the wall is here if you need it. That being said, you don't need to do that next to a wall if you're feeling steady. Okay, it's up to you. So we're going to take the left leg to the seat of the chair, and then you're going to do an assessment before you twist. Everything's facing forward. Look at your foot underneath you. Did it turn out? Can it turn back forward? Can you feel like your toes and your knees and your hip are pointing forward? Check out your hips and feel where your weight is in the leg that you're standing on. Are you way forward in the ball of your foot? Could your hips move back over your ankle joint? Can your shoulders be over your hip joint? Can your ears be over your shoulders? Okay, and then thinking about reaching the arms into the sky. So it's like a high knee march, right? But our foot's on a chair and the front ribs soften down. And then let's reach the arms forward. Okay, so we're going to be turning into the left leg, and let's think about this. Pull your left arm and your left thigh back. Let your trunk pull back on that left side. Glide your right arm, your right shoulder, the right side of your waist forward. So you start to turn into the left leg. And then maybe the left arm opens out behind you, or maybe it just hangs down alongside your waist toward the floor. Use your exhales to turn the abdomen, to turn the spine. Use the inhale to get a little taller. When you're ready to unwind, bring that arm back forward, and then take your arms down and stand on 2 feet. Nice work, everybody. Second side, right leg is going to come to this chair. We're going to think about how that left leg landed. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's nice to try to get things organized. But we're pretty much disorganized in real life, so we want to strengthen around ourselves as disorganized beings as well. But let's try to find alignment here. So bringing the hips over the ankles, shoulders over the hips, ears over the shoulders. Maybe run your right thumb from your inner groin to your outer hip crease, and let that outer hip crease drop down so your pelvis feels more level. Reach the arms into the sky. So we're in an extended mountain pose with our right leg floating. You could even try to float your foot up off of the chair if you wanted. We didn't do that on the first side, but hey, why not? And then bring it down, reach the arms forward. Deep breath in. So on this side, the left arm is going to glide forward as the right arm and shoulder pull back. The right thigh pulls back, and we turn our trunk into the right leg. The right arm reaches out behind us, or it just hangs low. Okay, so you're turning into the leg. You got it. Perfect. Yeah, turn. So the left arm reaches toward me. There you go. The right arm reaches toward the wall behind you. There you go. So think about hugging a block between your 2 thighs, finding a little inner thigh strength as you're turning around. When you're ready, unwind, come back to the center. Arms release down, 2 feet come back to the floor. Nice work. Okay, another thing to play with. Actually, we're gonna lie down on our backs for a moment. So you can move your chairs off of your yoga mat for a moment. We're gonna come back up to standing in a moment. And just lie down and unravel your strap. Okay, lie down on your back. You're going to lie down on your back. Remember that if you lie down and your forehead, when you lie down on your back, if your forehead is a lot lower than your chin, it can be a really nice thing to just tuck a blanket or a slight pillow underneath your head, because we all have different shaped spines. Some of us have a more rounded thoracic curve, which when you lie down on the ground means that your cervical curve becomes more dramatic. And so a little blanket under the head can bring things a little bit more back into balance. So here we are. Just begin to tip and tuck your pelvis a few times. Tailbone drops. So the low back arches, maybe on an inhale. And on an exhale, the navel pulls down and the low back imprints into the floor. And we'll just go back and forth a couple times. Again, this awareness of how the position of your pelvis affects the curves of your spine. And then see if you can balance right on the middle of your sacrum, between those two extremes, and feel how there's maybe a slight breezeway underneath the waistband where your belt would pass, but maybe your low back ribs are able to rest into the ground. Again, we all have different shaped spines. Some of you will have more space under the low back than others. But here we are, this is neutral spine, and we feel the ground giving us some feedback. So we're gonna rock the right leg into our chest and give it a hug. Just roll that ankle around in a few circles, and then go the other way. And then when you're ready, you could even use your abdomen, catch your strap and curl yourself up, ribs to hips, navel to spine, curl up and lasso your right foot with your strap, and then let your shoulders and your head come back down and stretch your right leg into the sky. And then curl up again, look at your hips, make sure your hips are even, your right hip isn't hiking up high into your waist, and then let your shoulders and your head come back down. And let's slide the left leg out long, if that's okay, if that doesn't make your low back uncomfortable. And feel your shoulders, your arms resting back into the floor so that the heart region feels open. It doesn't feel like it's collapsed or closed off. And can the shoulder blades draw down the back a little bit? Enjoy a few slow breaths here, just feeling supported by the ground. And noticing what this shape feels like in your body, and noticing if you're pushing yourself, your mantra is no pain, no gain. I challenge you to soften a little bit. It doesn't have to be tons and tons of sensation. We definitely don't want any sharpness around those sit bones. Good. Now I'm going to talk you into another variation. We're going to move into it slowly. Take your awareness to your left leg, the one that's long and on the ground. Rebend it and plant your foot on the floor. If you want, you can watch me do this next part, or you can just follow along, but I'm going to press my left foot down into the ground, and my pelvis is going to lift up just a little bit, and I'm going to kind of swing it to the right and set it down. So I'm just bumping my pelvis about an inch to the right of my feet and my shoulders, and I'm setting it down. And then I'm going to slide my left leg back out long, and I'm going to pass both of my straps into my left hand. So both straps are in the left hand, and the right leg is nice and long. And we're going to start to reach the right leg across the midline of the body. And you're going to start feeling a big stretch coming up your outer leg. And then you're going to let your right hip, the right side of your pelvis, roll off of the ground. So your pelvis is turning to the left, but your ribs and your heart and your lungs are still facing the ceiling. You're rolling onto the outer edge of your left leg, and the right leg is just reaching across the body. And remember, you can feed yourself more strap if this is too intense. An adjustment you can make with your right hand is to take your pelvic rim, that right pelvic rim, with your right hand. Yep, place your right hand on your right pelvic rim and roll your right pelvic rim out of your waist. The waist is long. And then you're feeling your pelvis like one cylinder turning across to the left, and your rib cage like another cylinder turning to the right. The right arm might reach right. You might gaze right. And this shape that we're taking, you could call it revolved triangle pose, reclined. It's a nice big twist. Make sure your breath is easy. And when you're ready, come back through the center. And then release your right leg from the strap. Let it come all the way down to the ground. Watch out for chairs. Let your pelvis come back to the center and just flop and feel your legs for a moment and your hips for a moment. Does one feel a little longer than the other? Yeah. Feel the sparkly tingliness in one side compared to the other. And then let's do that again. So let's bend the knees. Let's rock the left thigh into our trunk and give it a hug. Roll the left ankle around in a few slow circles. Good. And then when you're ready, take your strap around your left foot. You're gonna curl yourself up, lasso your foot, stretch your left leg into the sky, shoulders come back to the floor. Once you feel like your pelvis is nice and level, we're gonna slide the right leg out nice and long. And here we are in the same stretch on the second side, saying good evening to our hamstrings and our calves and our plantar fascia, and organizing our shoulders back into their sockets, the scapula onto our back ribs, and feeling our whole back body supported by the ground. A nice, slow, deep breath in and out. When you're ready, bend your right knee, plant your right foot on the floor. So this is that next variation. Are you ready? So the right foot is planted. We're gonna lift the hips up about an inch off the ground by pushing that right foot down, and we're gonna shimmy the hips or swing the hips to the left and set them down. And then slide the right leg long and pass your straps into your right hand. Okay? So the left leg is gonna start to reach across the midline of the body. And you'll encounter maybe a big stretch coming up the hip or the outer leg or even the lower leg. And then let the left side of your pelvis begin to peel off of the floor. But your shoulders stay on the ground. The ribs stay level with the ground. It's the pelvis that's turning across or coming into a twist. Your left hand could find your left pelvic rim, which I'm demonstrating. And we can glide that pelvic rim out of our waist. Sometimes that waist wants to bunch up. Remember to feed yourself more strap if you need it to take the edge off so you're not working too deep too fast. The left arm might reach left. And you can look over that left hand and feel the belly expanding with your inhale and resting back toward the spine with the exhale, and some just nice energy moving through your limbs. And then we'll slowly come back through the center. Unstrap your foot, slowly lower that leg back to the ground. And when it comes back to the ground, you might feel like you need to bring your hips back in line, you know, because we had just shifted them to the left. So bring them back to center and just be still for a moment and feel. Good. And then rebend your knees and decide which side to roll to. We're gonna roll to one side and come onto our abdomen. So you're gonna swing, if you're in the studio, your heads toward the front of your mats, and we're just gonna come into Sphinx Pose in your own time. Okay, so Sphinx Pose, the forearms are parallel, the elbows are under the shoulders, the legs lengthen back one at a time. They can be about hip width apart. You okay, Jerry? Okay. They can be about hip width apart, or they could even be wider if that feels better for your lower back. We want the legs to be strong and engaged. And then you're thinking about engaging your gluteal muscles and your low abdomen so that the pelvis doesn't feel, you don't feel like you're compressing in the low back. You're just going to send your sit bones toward your heels just a little bit. And pressing the floor away, shoulders come down out of the ears. So some of you might have your elbows right under your shoulders. Some of you might be even lower. Your elbows are forward of the shoulders. It's whatever feels right, the right amount of extension for your spine. We'll take a breath. So this shape here, we're holding ourselves up with our bones, okay, in extension. And if we're doing a lot of things out in front of us during the day, it's really a sweet thing to let your spine move into this back bend, into a back bending shape. And now we're just going to take a moment and use our back muscles to lift our spine into a back bend. So you're going to bring our hands alongside our hips, palms to the floor, forehead to the floor. Again, lift and lengthen your legs back so they're long and strong. Engage the quads, engage your gluteal muscles, and then roll the front of the shoulders away from the floor. On an inhale, lift your chest and your forehead away from the floor. And see if you can lift your arms away from the floor, palms face down today. Doesn't have to be that way all the time. And take a few slow breaths. So your low abdominal muscles are working in concert with your gluteal muscles to help organize your pelvis. Remember, what the pelvis is doing influences what the spine is doing. So you want to find kind of a neutral pelvic position so that your lower back doesn't feel like it's flattened, but it doesn't feel like it's overextended. Just feel supported and long. Take another breath here. And then lower down, hands underneath your shoulders. And with an inhale, prepare for prayer pose. On your exhale, think about pushing yourself up to your hands and knees and moving your sit bones back toward your heels just as far as feels appropriate for your joints, for your knee joints, for your ankle joints. The arms are reaching way out in front of you. And then we're going to pull ourselves to tabletop pose. When you get to tabletop pose, pause. So your hands are under your shoulders and the creases of your elbows spinning toward your thumb and your index finger. And right here, we can figure out where is neutral pelvis. It's, again, a different relationship to gravity than when we were sitting on our sit bones earlier. But when you're neutral, that pelvic floor is pointing straight back, shining a light on the wall behind you. You have a little curve and back bend in your lower back. The front ribs are integrated. The upper back isn't over-rounded. The head is in line with the spine. And what we're going to do is just slide the left leg back long, tuck our toes under. Keep that whole spine nice and neutral, pelvis and shoulders, everything. Imagine a small child sitting on your leg. They're a little heavy. Lift them up without letting the pelvis lose its levelness. Feel the hamstrings and the glutes engage. And then can the right arm reach forward? So this is a nice option if doing prone back bend like we just did doesn't feel wonderful for you. This is a nice way to wake up and turn on the entire back line of the body. Bring your hand and knee back to floor. I forgot to offer, you can put a blanket under your knees if you need it. Thank you, Janet, for taking care of yourself. So armpits are kind of strengthening toward your hips. Take your right leg back, tuck your toes under, and then lift that right leg up. Imagine a small child sitting on your leg. Left arm reaches forward. Breathing, feeling again on the exhales, the abdomen strengthening back toward the front of the spine. Gaze soft, jaw soft, head in line with spine rather than hanging toward the floor. Good. 2 hands, 2 knees on the floor. Tuck your toes under and shift into downward facing dog when you're ready. So the knees lift up. They might stay a little bent. We're going to push the floor down and away and send our hips up and back. And I just noticed my strap is still on me. Get rid of that. Sorry, Janet. I almost got you with my strap. My apologies. Dangerous yoga teacher here. So here we are, nice long spine. And eventually we're going to step forward to the top of our mat and hinge all the way back up to standing, because I have maybe 2 more. I'm hoping I can do 2 more shapes with you. So we're gonna find standing forward fold and come halfway up. And then we're gonna come all the way up, unhinge. The pelvis brings the spine upright, reach the arms into the sky. And then bring your hands to your heart. And now you need your chairs again. Okay, so this first shape we're gonna play with, we've done in this class before. We're revisiting. This is Warrior 3, using a chair. It's a balance pose traditionally, but we're gonna use a chair to get started, and then you can decide if you wanna play with your balance here. I'm gonna demonstrate it, and then we'll do it together. I have some little cues that I want you to see. So the chair is in front of me, the seat of the chair is facing me. I'm gonna bend my knees. I'm gonna hinge from the hips. My hands are on the chair seat under my shoulders. My weight is in my heels are under my hips. So watch this. I wanna think about, without literally moving the chair, I wanna think about trying to pull the chair toward my feet. I don't know if you saw what just happened in my upper back and in my shoulder girdle. So I went from here to here. Okay, so I found some strength under here. My pelvis, I'm figuring out where neutral is. There it is. And my legs are bent. I'm gonna stand on my left leg. It's nice and bent. And I'm gonna pretend I'm scraping bubblegum off of my right leg. And here's our Warrior 3. We were just doing it. We were on our knees. Maybe your hands come off of your chair and you float. Maybe the hands stay on the chair. We're trying to keep the hip level. And I want you to just notice this leg is bent. So if that's possible for you, keep it bent. Keep your weight in your heel. It turns your seat on to support you. It allows your pelvis to be organized. And then we're just gonna stand up, okay? So some of you moved into the pose with me. Let's come up and start over again. Feet are hip width apart. Knees are gonna bend. Hinge from your hips. Push the tops of your thigh bones back toward your sit bones. Let the pelvis lift up and over your femurs. Place your hands on the seat of the chair. With your knees bent, first check out your pelvis. Tip it and tuck it and find neutral. So your lumbar curve is present. And then collect your front ribs in a little bit. And now try to friction the chair toward your legs. Let your upper chest move through the frame of your arms. Feel your armpits hug toward your hips. Nice, Kelly. Take your weight onto your left leg. Let it be bent. Feel some weight in the left heel. And now pull your right leg back. Feel your hamstrings and your gluteal muscles are pulling that leg back rather than your lower back. Some of you will feel like your pelvis has tipped forward. I want you to draw your pubic bone and your sternum back together and really strengthen through that floating leg. Now, maybe your left arm reaches forward or back by your hip. And maybe you feel steady and the right arm can release too, or maybe both hands have to stay on the chair. You're figuring out what works for you today. Take another breath. And then we're gonna bring our right foot down. As it comes down, bring the pelvis and the spine upright, hinge to standing. Good job. Second side, I'm just gonna turn because I have my back to Janet and Jerry and it feels rude, sorry. Second side, so we just were standing on our left leg and the right leg was floating, correct? Okay, good. So now we're gonna hinge forward, knees bend, we hinge forward, hands plant. Again, make sure your feet are under your hips, your hands are under your shoulders, tip and tuck and find neutral pelvis. And then think about armpits to hips. Pull the chair toward your legs without literally pulling it. Feel the armpit strength. Take your weight onto your right leg. Let that right leg be bent and feel some weight in that heel. Pull the left leg back. Float it up. Feel the hamstrings and gluteal muscles working. Bend the right knee a little more if it's okay in your knee to do that. Feel more weight in your heel. Right arm might reach forward away from left leg. Right arm might reach back alongside the hip. Left arm might come off of the chair alongside the hip along with the right arm. It's all up to you, but stay strong in that floating leg. Reconnect to your abdomen, sternum and pubic bone. Coming closer together without dumping the chest. When you're ready to stand, stand all the way up. Arms reach into the sky. You guys have some beautiful warrior threes, hands to heart. Good. We're going to save the second pose for next time. It's time to start quieting down and moving towards Savasana, but wonderful job balancing today. And thank you for playing with chairs. We're going to set the chairs aside. We're going to just, without any fancy transitions, come back to the ground on our backs. You need a block. If you feel like you need a pillow, put a pillow down. Actually, don't put a pillow down yet, unless you really need one for yourself. We're going to move in and out of bridge pose 5 times with our breath, and then we're going to be still. Okay. So I just unfolded a blanket for myself because my spine likes a little bit of padding when I'm moving around on my body on the hard floor. I'm going to lie down, and I like to put a block between my legs or something to hold. If you're at home and you don't have a block, a ball or a pillow, that just feels better for knees or hips. That's a nice option. When you get down here, feel that your left leg and your right leg are coming to meet the block evenly. Feel the feet evenly pressing into the ground. Begin to tip and tuck your pelvis, low back arching and flattening, maybe with your breath. Inhaling to arch, tailbone dropping, and exhaling. So pull the pelvic rim down and flatten the back into the floor. And then you can add, after your next exhale, when you flatten the back down, on your inhale, press your feet down and begin to peel your spine off the ground from your tailbone to your lumbar, to your thoracic. Your pelvis splits up, the thighs are hugging the block and sending it away from your hips, the thighs toward the knees toward the toes, and then lower your spine 1 vertebra at a time back down to the ground. And when your hips come down, feel neutral pelvis return. And then just do that again, maybe even just 2 more times. Peeling the spine up, press down with the feet, reach the thighs forward, peel up, feel the collarbones broad and the arms firming down, and then lower your spine like you're lowering a pearl necklace. You have to connect in with your low abdominal muscles to help articulate your spine. Low back arches again with your inhale, and 1 more time, peeling up and down. Move at your own pace. Coming just as high as feels appropriate for your body, your spine. When your hips come down this last time, you can pull the block out. You can rock the knees in, give them a hug, begin to circle them around a few times. That might also just be a nice release for the inner legs to pull the knees apart. Circling them around. And then when you are ready, it's time to lie still. You can stretch your legs out long, a little wider than hip width apart, arms opening a comfortable distance from your trunk, palms to heaven. If your lower back doesn't like when your legs are stretched straight and long, tuck a little blanket under your knees, or just keep the knees bent. It's up to you. Be comfortable. And with 3 slow, deep breaths, especially those exhales, a sense of letting go, letting be. Noticing how you feel in your body, in your mind, energetically, physically, even any feelings that are here at the end of your practice. Shavasana is our final asana, is our final shape that we take. It's an invitation to rest completely, the body and the mind. Nothing more to be done. Feel held by the ground. sustained by your breath. And then drawing a nice deep breath in and feeling your lungs fill up. And then feel your lungs empty out. And another deep breath, feeling the belly expand. And the belly relax back toward the spine with the exhale. And thinking about what movement would feel nice right now. You could do anything. It could be small as a wiggling of the fingers. It could be as big as a cat stretch. You might turn the head from side to side. So beginning to stir. And then when you're ready, you can bend your knees and make your way onto one side or the other. And then eventually up to sitting. You can kneel, you could sit cross-legged, you could sit in your chair. Give yourself whatever height you need so that your pelvis can find its level position and your spine can feel supported in all of its natural curves. When that's all happening, then the breath can move with ease. The diaphragm can expand and dome up. The lungs can fill and empty efficiently. And there's a sense of being able to relax in this upright posture. Gravity moving through us efficiently. Downward energy, rising energy. With an inhale, rolling our palms skyward. With an exhale, hands could come to heart, maybe bowing inwardly and saying thank you to yourself for setting some time aside to be in your body, to be in community, to move and breathe and practice being present. Thanks for being here, everyone. Namaste.